Max Verstappen has just delivered a warning Red Bull cannot afford to ignore before Spa. And this is much bigger than one race. Reports claim Verstappen is seeking $100 million per year to extend his future with Red Bull, while separate speculation says Mercedes has already rejected the demands linked to a possible move. That creates a brutal situation. Red Bull must now prove it can still give Verstappen the car, the leadership, and the long-term direction he needs, or risk losing the driver who has defined its modern success. But the timing makes this even more dangerous. Spa is approaching. Pressure is rising. Questions are growing around Red Bull's future. And Verstappen is already being told that leaving may be the only way to keep fighting for the biggest prizes in Formula One. The reported demands remain unconfirmed in the supplied material. But the warning behind them is impossible to miss. This is not only about money. It is about trust. It is about power. It is about whether Verstappen still believes Red Bull can match his ambition. And if Red Bull fails that test before Spa, the next move could change the entire Formula One grid. To understand why Verstappen's warning matters so much, you have to look beyond the reported number. $100 million per year sounds like the entire story. It is not. Money is only the visible part. The deeper question is what Verstappen believes Red Bull must become if it wants to keep him. Because a driver at his level is not only negotiating salary. He is negotiating certainty. Certainty that the car will remain competitive. Certainty that the team will keep improving. Certainty that the people making the biggest decisions still know how to protect the future. And right now, that certainty appears to be under pressure. The supplied material points to reports of major contract demands, speculation that Mercedes rejected the conditions surrounding a possible move, and public claims that Verstappen may need to leave Red Bull if he wants to achieve more in Formula One. Those reports do not prove that a departure is decided. They do not confirm that every demand is accurate. But together, they create a clear picture. Verstappen's future is becoming part of the battle around Red Bull. And that changes the meaning of Spa. Normally, Spa would be judged through lap time, qualifying pace, tire behavior, straight line speed, race strategy. But this time, the weekend could carry another layer. Belief. Does Verstappen still believe Red Bull can give him what he needs? That question cannot be answered by one public statement. It cannot be answered by one contract rumor. It has to be answered by the car. Because promises sound different when the driver reaches the circuit. A team can talk about progress. It can talk about long-term plans. It can talk about confidence. But when the driver turns the steering wheel, all of that disappears. Only the car remains. And the car tells the truth immediately. Does the front respond? Does the rear feel stable? Can the driver attack? Can the team react when conditions change? Can Red Bull give Verstappen a machine that allows him to fight instead of survive? That is where trust is built. Or lost. And Spa is a brutal place to test it. The circuit is long, fast, unforgiving. It exposes poor balance. It exposes weak acceleration. It exposes instability. It exposes hesitation. A driver can hide a problem for a few corners. He cannot hide it for an entire lap at Spa. And that is why Verstappen's warning feels so serious. He does not need Red Bull to be perfect. No team is perfect. He needs evidence that the direction is right, that the weaknesses are understood, that improvements are arriving fast enough, that the team is not asking him to wait while his best years disappear. This is the pressure behind the headline. A driver can accept one difficult weekend. He can accept one failed upgrade. He can even accept a season that becomes more complicated than expected. What becomes harder to accept is uncertainty without progress. Because uncertainty changes how every setback feels. A poor result stops being one poor result. It becomes evidence. A strategic mistake stops being one bad call. It becomes a pattern. A difficult car stops being a temporary problem. It becomes a warning about the future. And once a driver begins seeing every weakness through that lens, the relationship changes. That is what Red Bull must prevent. The team does not only need to convince Verstappen with words. It needs to restore the feeling that staying is the strongest option. That means performance. But it also means control. A stable organization. Clear leadership. A development plan that produces results. A contract structure that reflects his value. And a car capable of matching his ambition. Remove one of those pieces, and Red Bull can still survive. Remove too many, and the entire argument for staying becomes weaker. This is where the reported interest from elsewhere becomes important. The supplied material says Mercedes may have rejected the demands linked to a possible move. That does not close the story. It complicates it. Because rejection can mean many things. The financial terms may have been too high. The conditions may have been too difficult. The timing may have been wrong. or the report itself may not reflect the full private conversation. But from Red Bull's perspective, the danger remains. The strongest driver on the grid does not need unlimited options. He only needs one credible alternative. One team with the right project. One contract with the right protection. One belief that the future could be better somewhere else. That possibility gives Verstappen leverage. And leverage changes conversations. Red Bull can no longer rely only on history. Past success matters. Championships matter. Loyalty matters. But Formula One moves too quickly for nostalgia to protect a future. The car that dominated before does not automatically dominate again. The team that made the best decisions before does not automatically make the best decisions next. Every season asks the same ruthless question. What can you deliver now? That is the question Verstappen will carry into Spa. Not what Red Bull once was. What Red Bull is becoming. And the answer may come through details most people overlook. How quickly the team understands the car. How confidently Verstappen speaks after practice. Whether the setup direction becomes clearer. Whether Red Bull solves problems overnight. Whether the race pace matches the promise. Those details reveal more than one dramatic headline. Because they show whether the team still has control. And control is what every elite driver needs. Not control over every result. That is impossible. Control over the direction. A driver can endure pressure when the path is clear. The difficult moments feel temporary. The sacrifices feel connected to something larger. But when the path becomes uncertain, even small problems feel heavier. That may be the real warning Verstappen is sending. Not give me everything immediately. Show me why I should believe. Show me that the team can recover. Show me that the car will improve. Show me that the future is not built only on promises. That is a much more dangerous demand than money. Money can be negotiated. Belief cannot. Once belief disappears, a larger salary may only delay the decision. And that is why the reported $100 million figure may distract from the real battle. Red Bull could meet a financial demand and still lose the deeper argument. If the car does not improve, doubt remains. If leadership feels unstable, doubt remains. If rivals appear to have stronger long-term projects, doubt remains. The contract can secure a signature. It cannot force conviction. And Verstappen is not in a position where he has to accept uncertainty quietly. He knows his value. Red Bull knows his value. Every rival knows his value. That makes his warning powerful even if no official ultimatum has been confirmed. Because the possibility of leaving is enough to create pressure. Pressure on the engineers. Pressure on leadership. Pressure on contract negotiations. Pressure on every race weekend. Spa becomes part of that pressure. A strong weekend could calm the story. It could make Red Bull's direction feel credible again. It could remind Verstappen what the partnership can still produce. But a weak weekend could do the opposite. It could make every rumor sound louder. It could make every alternative look more attractive. It could turn one difficult race into another argument for change. That is why this is not only a sporting test. It is a political test inside Formula One. Red Bull must prove that it still controls the environment around its most important driver. Verstappen must decide how much patience the project deserves. Rival teams must decide whether the door is truly open. And every public comment can move that balance. One sentence can create reassurance. Another can create doubt. One strong performance can slow the rumors. One visible failure can restart everything. This is the uncomfortable reality before Spa. Red Bull is racing on two tracks. One is the circuit. The other is Verstappen's confidence in the future. And the second may matter even more. Because losing a race costs points. Losing belief can cost the driver around whom the entire project has been built. That is the warning Red Bull cannot ignore. Not the number in the contract report. Not the speculation around Mercedes. Not the pressure created by outside voices. The real warning is simpler. Verstappen wants proof. And before Spa, Red Bull has very little room left to provide it. And this is where the warning becomes even more dangerous for Red Bull. Because proof does not arrive through one fast lap. It arrives through a pattern. A strong practice session means very little if the car becomes unpredictable in qualifying. A competitive qualifying result means very little if the tires collapse in the race. A good race means very little if the same weakness returns at the next circuit. Verstappen is not looking for one perfect weekend. He is looking for evidence that Red Bull can build momentum. That is a much harder standard. Momentum means the car improves for the right reasons. The team understands why it improved. The engineers can repeat the result. And the driver feels that the next step is already possible. Without that, every positive result feels temporary. And temporary performance does not create long-term trust. This is why Spa matters so much. The circuit will force Red Bull to answer several questions at once. Can the car remain stable at high speed? Can it protect the tires over a long stint? Can it give Verstappen confidence under braking? Can the team react quickly if the conditions change? Can strategy support the performance instead of rescuing it? Each answer matters. But the way those answers connect matters even more. A Formula One team can survive one weakness. It can sometimes even win with one weakness. What becomes dangerous is when several weaknesses begin feeding each other. A difficult balance increases tire stress. More tire stress reduces race pace. Lower race pace creates strategic pressure. Strategic pressure increases the risk of mistakes. And each mistake makes the driver question whether the problem is temporary or structural. That is how doubt grows. Not from one disaster. From repeated moments that point in the same direction. And Verstappen will notice those moments before anyone else. He feels the car before the data is fully understood. He knows when the front is not responding. He knows when the rear cannot be trusted. He knows when a lap time looks acceptable only because he has forced the car beyond a comfortable limit. That creates an uncomfortable situation for Red Bull. The timing screen may show that the team is close. Verstappen may feel that the gap is much larger. Because drivers experience difficulty in a way numbers cannot always capture. A lap time shows the result. It does not always show the effort required to produce it. And effort matters. A car that demands everything from the driver for one lap may still look competitive. But over an entire weekend, that demand becomes exhausting. Every braking zone requires more precision. Every correction creates more tire temperature. Every attack carries more risk. The driver is no longer using the car. He is managing the car. That difference can decide whether confidence grows or disappears. And Verstappen's warning may be aimed directly at that problem. He does not want a car that only looks close. He wants a car that allows him to fight naturally. A car that gives him the freedom to attack. A car that does not require extraordinary recovery every time the balance shifts. A car that rewards his speed instead of using his speed to hide its weaknesses. That is a powerful distinction. Because Red Bull has benefited from Verstappen's ability to extract performance for years. But the better the driver becomes at hiding a weakness, the easier it can be for the team to underestimate how serious that weakness really is. One brilliant lap can disguise instability. One aggressive race can disguise poor tire behavior. One impossible overtake can disguise a lack of strategic flexibility. From the outside, the result looks strong. Inside the cockpit, the problem may feel much more serious. And once the driver begins thinking that his own performance is protecting the team from reality, frustration grows. That frustration does not always appear as anger. Sometimes it appears as precision. Short answers. Sharper comments. Less patience with explanations. A greater focus on what must change. That may be the real meaning behind a fierce warning. Not emotion without control. Clarity without compromise. Verstappen knows Red Bull understands his value. He also knows that value gives him the power to demand more than promises. He can demand evidence. He can demand urgency. He can demand that the team reacts before another season disappears. And that is where the pressure becomes internal. Because Red Bull cannot simply move faster by wanting to move faster. Development takes time. New parts need to be designed. Simulations need to be completed. Components need to be manufactured. The team has to understand whether one change improves the whole car or only moves the weakness somewhere else. Formula One rewards speed. But rushed development can create confusion. And confusion is exactly what Verstappen cannot afford to see. A rushed upgrade that fails at Spa would be more damaging than no upgrade at all. Because failure would not only cost performance. It would weaken belief. It would suggest that the team is reacting under pressure instead of controlling the direction. That is why Red Bull faces a difficult balance. Move too slowly, and Verstappen may lose patience. Move too quickly, and the team may introduce parts it does not fully understand. The perfect response is not urgency alone. It is controlled urgency. Fast decisions supported by clear reasoning. Aggressive development supported by reliable data. Confidence without denial. That is the standard Verstappen is likely judging. And Spa will reveal whether Red Bull can meet it. Because Spa does not give teams many places to hide. The lap is long. The conditions can change. The circuit punishes instability. And the speed makes every small weakness feel larger. If the car is nervous, Verstappen will feel it. If the tires are being overworked, the race will expose it. If the setup window is too narrow, changing weather will reveal it. And if the team is uncertain, the garage will show it through constant adjustments. That is where observers should look. Not only at the fastest lap. At the number of setup changes.